How many times have you heard someone say, if I had money, well, I'd do things my way. Little do they know that it's so hard to find one rich man in 10 with a satisfied mind. Once I was winning in fortune and fame, everything I dreamed for to get a start in life's game. But suddenly it happened, I lost every dime. But I'm richer by far now, with a satisfied mind. Money can't buy back the youth when you're old, a friend when you're lonely, or a love that's grown cold. The wealthiest person is a pauper at times, compared to a man with a satisfied mind. When my life is ended, my time is run out. My friends and my loved ones, oh, leave there's no doubt. One thing's for certain, when it comes my time, oh, leave this old world a satisfied mind.
Hey everybody, this is Garrett with Command Z, and welcome to another Art of NGF Victim to Adventurer podcast. Today we've got some really special guests, Lee and Glenn Perry, the founders of Samadhi Tank Company, and also founders of the entire Floatation industry. Sometimes people refer to it as sensory deprivation, so just so you're aware, it's that entire industry. These are the founders that we're talking to today, and they were also students and close personal friends of John C. Lilly, who many of you listening have also heard of and read some of his books. So what we're going to get into today is some ideas around a congruent and cohesive, deeply satisfying quality of life. Glenn, you told me you put together a list of some of the elements of what make up that satisfying and fulfilling life. And I know these things remain a mystery to many people, even when they achieve what they think they should achieve as success. They find it empty, or they find themselves even worse off than when they thought they were failing, because now they got what they thought they were after for all those years or decades, and then feel empty. So what I want to give to people who are listening today is some way to deal with that right now, even while you're listening, to start improving that. So we'll just dive right into your list, Glenn. What's the first element that you have on there? Well, first let me say welcome to you guys. Welcome, Lee. Welcome, Glenn.
Thanks.
Hi.
Yeah, nice being here.
And welcome to Paula too. She's here in case of questions that come up. You can toss those in.
Sure.
Just no comments.
No comments, only questions. Yeah.
Okay.
So Glenn, what's the first element on the list? And then we'll
See,
just...
that's one of them, what you just did. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the next thing.
Having a spiritual practice or orientation as part of my life, I find very important. And one part of that is, for me, is to learn or develop the orientation of working for others, putting other people before myself, and so that I'm helping the evolution of the planet or helping consciousness rather than focusing on me. But I think you probably can say more about a spiritual life.
I think in this country at this time, spiritual is sometimes a scary word to people, and it's looked upon as run in the other direction as fast as you can, because how do you talk to somebody spiritually? I mean, if we were going to have a four-way conversation, we're talking spiritually, would we be talking about, I went to church this morning, or it's tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and we're going to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, or how about if I just, as a mom, I just had the most outstanding day with my kids, and we all were fully connected to each other and laughing and sharing our food and wanting to clean up the kitchen together. Is that included in the spiritual model? To me it is. And so, or how about that time, like up here in Grass Valley, we get nights where the sun at night, it goes down over the back of the hills in this red, orange stripe that when you, if you notice it without having realized it was there, it's like your mouth falls open and you take a deep breath and you think, how could you be so lucky as to see anything, a palette of that nature that's sitting right up there, and it's only going to be there for the next few minutes as it drops down below the horizon. Am I looking at the Great Spirit? I would say yes. So that's why it's tricky. But I know you, Glenn, and I know you know how to make things very logical, a logical way for people to be able to see things. And so maybe you say, when you say you want to include the spiritual in your life, which that's how you do it, but you know, like the examples that I just gave, you are, you know, you're kind to people. You want them to know what you're thinking if they ask. You want to offer help if they need it. But how do you describe it if somebody says, well, what do you mean about a spiritual life?
One of the things that I feel is that most of us spend most of our time in our mind, and to me, a spiritual life is where we move out of our mind and into our heart. And maybe I'll talk a little more about that when I talk about floating. But that's, the heart is the place where we be, it's the place where all creativity happens, where all learning happens and so on. And it's where we love from and so on. And most of us actually think that that's who we are, and it's at some level. It's like when we say I, we don't point to our head. We're likely to put our hand on our chest. And so most of us have some sense that we have something to do with the heart. The we that exist is somehow heart related.
That sounds, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just tried it. My hand went directly to my chest.
Right.
Not to my head.
Yeah. Or to your hip or your foot. I mean, even though we have a soul, no, okay. So the next item on the list.
Well, one second, I wanted to ask a little more about spirituality and what I did a course on religion and spirituality as part of the Art of Not Giving a Fuck series, this is the podcast of that same effort. And in that, I help people sort of disabuse themselves of all the stuff that kind of what you were referencing a little, that reaction to the word, and mostly the abuses they experience at the hands of some kind of organized religious group or another, usually mental or learning how not to learn or how to believe in things that you don't agree with, this type of stuff. And so then we've helped them get over that, and then to create their own type of, or understand and create their own type of experience of what we might be calling spirituality. So I wanted to just ask you a little more, what would you mean by a spiritual practice, and how would that work in your life?
Well, meditation would be a form of spiritual practice. When we do business, it's a spiritual practice because our focus isn't on money, but on helping others and raising the consciousness of people and raising our consciousness. Other spiritual practices could be planting something and being present when you plant something, or when you're cooking, to be present when you're cooking something.
So it is somehow...
Any time when you're being present
Yeah.
is a spiritual practice.
Yeah, I was going to say that if it for you relates with awareness, a sense of awareness, spirituality.
Yes.
All right, excellent. So let's just head on down the list.
The next item I have is to have a good diet. And I've worked on that for 20 years. And whenever I feel different, either good or bad, from my baseline state, I go back in time to see if I can determine some cause for that, something that might have produced that effect. So I am constantly noticing the effects of diet on my system. And as a result of that, I started paying attention to diet with other people. And what I have noticed is that as a general rule, the people who are the most emotional, the most neurotic and so on, seem to have the worst diet. That diet strongly influences our sense of well-being and how we interact with others, and probably the single biggest thing there is the amount of sugar we eat. And if we have lots of sugar, then life will be more interesting for us than those of us who don't eat any sugar. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of dietary stuff in this program, but I will mention one thing, and as an example of the kind of thing I'm talking about, is I, as a general rule, avoid any food that comes in a package, because 99% of the stuff that comes in a package I don't consider food. If it's not alive, it's not food. And if it's not alive, it probably requires two things. It requires a preservative to give it any kind of shelf life, and two, it's probably been flavor enhanced. So there's very little stuff, such as raw butter and so on, that is actually something I personally would be willing to buy in a package.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example of improving my diet.
It's the kind of thing that in this world that we live in, okay, this is the United States in 2016, and we have these huge markets. I remember when I lived outside of the country for a while, and I came back to the US, and I walked into a market. I hadn't been to a market in a year. It was shocking. Aisles of food and paper and plastic, and you just go down the aisles and big carts, and you wheel a big cart around that has a lot of space in it, and you see people putting their hand out and taking from the shelf, putting in this package and that package and the other package, and it's when you come from another country that hasn't had that, it's a shock to the system. I mean, it really takes you back and say, whoa, either this is the richest place in the world, or, the place you came from, you carry what you're going to buy back in a little basket or something like that, and it's enough to prepare the next meal. Mm-hmm. And you never imagined that a place like this existed. I mean, I had a friend with me from that country, and her mouth just fell wide open as she looked and saw the way people live in this country. It's no wonder that people think that all Americans are rich and wasteful and all those things. A lot of us are very wasteful. So the idea of not eating packaged food, for somebody who's listening, that might throw them way out of balance. Well, what would I eat?
I would hope so.
Well, you would say they're not in balance now because they're eating that stuff. But,
Exactly.
but it's quite a thing. So maybe you talk about raising consciousness. What does that mean? It means that you become aware of who you are and what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're spending your time, how you feel about other people, how you feel while you're eating. Do you chew your food, or do you swallow the whole thing down? Mm-hmm. Shove it in and gulp it down. So the subject of eating is a very big one. And it's very nice in this little town of Grass Valley to see the parents with their little ones now encouraging their children to taste fruit. And in the school systems, they have gardens in the school, so the children are growing their food, and then a person from the community comes in and brings in the fruit and cuts the pieces and serves it to everybody in the class, so that people, like in New York City, when kids find out that milk comes from cows, they're surprised. No, it comes from the market in a bottle, or, in some kind of container. Mm-hmm. So this level of consciousness raising, connection to where you live and where things come from, is so much richer than what you imagine it could be until you begin.
Yeah.
And so just the idea of beginning to notice what you eat, where you get it, how you prepare it, how does it taste to you, and what are the possibilities there if you want to explore the idea of consciousness, of changing something in your direct environment. It's going down into you, through your mouth, down into your stomach. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very interesting idea, to start placing things that you never thought of. You know, right now, without thinking, your diet would be pizza. You know, that's all you have to eat is pizza. And where does it come from? Oh, I never saw an animal lay a pizza. It doesn't grow in my garden. So there are many things to consider, and lots of nice things for parents to do with their children, you know, when you start examining the whole question of food.
That's one of the things we did with the workshop that we put on, and I'll do this at all the workshops, but one that we put on in England over in August was to have, we hired a caterer, and then him and Will, who you guys, listeners know and you guys know, went around and got all the food that we needed. They planned the menus based on what was available right in that area, and you wouldn't even think of England usually as a place that would have a lot of really high quality organic food, but that's a misunderstanding. People usually are basing, oh, does this city or this place have good food? Well, they're thinking of the major city and what restaurants are there.
Yeah.
But they're not thinking of out on the countryside where almost I would venture to guess, every country in the world with a rural area has people growing organic and good food that's somehow it's within reach, I would say. Maybe it's not, but I would guess that it actually is if you go looking. And so yeah, I was having all the food be local within like a mile, you know, so you go see the animals where the meat came from and all this stuff. And without having to bring it up at all, it was a really radical part of the workshop for everyone. There was no snacks around, so any of the stuff they were used to having wasn't there, but they were being more nourished so that they never even thought of snacks, you know, in the way that they normally would have. And it took care of a lot of issues that would have been going on if they were providing their own meals, you know, and eating lots of sugars during that time.
That's a nice example.
Yeah, it
of
worked
that,
really
right?
well.
How many people were there?
There's like between 12 and 15 or 16, yeah.
So it was a large discovery.
Yeah, and everyone felt like it was the best food they'd ever had.
Wow.
I can see in my life, there was one moment when it was kind of like waking up and realizing that for many years I was, like what you, Glenn, was mentioning, kind of like eating what someone else told me to eat and buying this because that's what others are doing. And I grew up thinking this food is food, and if I do this, then I get that. But then suddenly it was a moment where I realized, well, I can still take in that path of just taking what life offers me through the TV, through others, or I can actually start making decisions, aware decisions, and start living with some intention. Start realizing that, yeah, there might be food that can keep me alive, but is that food actually nourishing me? Is actually like helping me and supporting me to think clear, or just to pass the day, you know, and keep alive, but with my functions working halfway? Or is the food, the clothes that I'm getting, the ones that I really want, or are the ones that someone else told me I'm supposed to wear? Are they being functional or not? So every habit of my life, and it's been a process that, I mean, I'm saying it started in one moment, but it's been years kind of unfolding of realizing more and more the details of my daily life, and realizing that it's in those habits and in those moments where actually I can find this thing called spirituality of awareness. And it is not necessarily doing this specific practice, meditation, yoga, all these can help, obviously, but they are not the places where you find actually that life. That life, you find it by building it every day and bringing yourself to become more responsible of the decisions that you are making. And sometimes, yeah, it's easier to take the easier shortcut, but at the end, many times it's not as satisfying. And that's why many of us ending having lives where we are full of stuff, surrounded by money, by food, by pleasures, and even with that, we're still feeling empty, and we don't find that sense of meaning for anything. So it's in those habits where really is when we are actually going to start building a new life and a new whole way of doing things. So I just want to mention that, yeah, the food factor is, for some people, still being like a kind of a thing that, oh, they overlook. It's not that important, but it is definitely a base for changing and transforming, feeling happier and feeling more satisfied with what you're doing.
I think
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Yeah. I totally, it's so basic. Yeah.
I haven't necessarily put my list of things that make me feel I have a far higher quality of life than most other people in priority, but you'll notice it was my number 2 item.
Right.
And the next one on my list is floating daily. And for me, there's 2 parts of that, and they're kind of sort of the same thing. One part is to move out of my mind and into my heart, and the other part is to what is the word? Find yourself, or discover yourself. That's all I could think of. It's
Are you looking for a different word
yeah.
than that?
Learn. What is
Know
in the
yourself.
huh?
No.
No,
Knowing.
thank you. There we go.
Ah.
I knew there was a word there. In at the entrance to the Temple of Delphi, thousands of years ago, they say, "Know yourself, and you will know the gods."
Mm.
Oh, that's I didn't, yeah.
And I think floating is, I don't know of any better way to start to find out about yourself and to know the gods as floating. And I think a lot of people are afraid of floating, and some of them say that it's claustrophobia, but I think probably the biggest fear is that some people are afraid that they will know themselves, and they aren't sure they want to. And I won't necessarily say you should, because maybe you have very good reason. But maybe if you try it and you do it at your own speed, in your own way, amazing, wonderful things can happen, and it can be pretty incredible.
Well, having been somebody who has floated so every day for a long, long time,
How long?
40 years, I totally agree with that. And in a way, it gives back so much more than it seems is possible. I climb into a box, and I come out of a box, shower, climb into a box, come out of a box, shower, and go about my day. And I've been speaking with people about floating for a long, long time. And I think you're correct that people are not afraid of other things, really. But without knowing yourself, you're not that 1-year-old who has fun moving your fingers around and looking. You start getting messages from a very early age that no, 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 cannot do. And all of those are registered. And the more I get to know myself and I see how I remember some of those no's that were introduced to me at a very early age, that I thought, I mean, would my parents say that if it wasn't true? That I was really such a terrible person, that I, just spilled milk all over the world, and who knows what the consequences of that might be? And, am I going to have to live with the name slob forever? And all these things that are put in maybe even innocently. My parents did that because their parents did that. And their parents did it because their parents did. And we didn't, for the longest time, like in the educational system in this country, we have not respected the delicacy of a person's way of looking at themselves. And we haven't made sure that we keep giving them things so they can see how wonderful they are, and how brilliant they are, and how individual they are, and how special they are in their own way. And I've been in the educational system, and you get a curriculum that you're supposed to teach in your class, and it has to do with reading and writing and arithmetic, but there isn't something in your curriculum about feeling good, knowing yourself, learning your strengths, doing the things that you love to do. It's still not put in the curriculum that way in most systems. And it's an extremely important issue for us growing up, that we learn that we're exactly who we're supposed to be. I am Lee. And what I do, I'm Paula. I don't do the same as you. Look at the wonderful things that you do. That's a natural thing to think if you come in on even footing. And, even Glenn and I, who are so close to each other, we still have to keep working that one out, because we're learning to help each other see our own goodness. And we have fun. That's fun. The other part, you bad, no fun. You're good, yes, fun. And so, you can kind of follow that trail. And so what you want to do is you want to keep on delivering what's so wonderful about the other one. I mean, can you imagine having to sit at every table and you're all just the same person?
Yeah.
We are all one, but not that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I have to say about that.
Thanks.
I like that.
The next thing on my list is meaningful work.
Meaningful work, good.
And
That really moves into just that same issue, doesn't it? Yeah.
for me, there's perhaps two parts to that. One is to be doing what I like to do. I think each of us, every single one of us, there is something that we do naturally no matter where we are. And for me, it's design. So whether I get paid for it or not, whether I'm working in the company, or whether I'm out in the garden, or I'm taking care of growing birds, or whatever I'm doing, I just naturally start designing things. And I think each one of us has something like that we're doing. Maybe it's relating to people, or maybe it's singing or being creative with words, or whatever. We all have something that we like to do and want to do, whether we get paid for it or not. And I think that's what we should do as our meaningful work, because then we aren't going to work and suffering, we're going to work and enjoying and loving what we're doing. And the other part of work is doing something where it's for a higher purpose than just our own ego gratification. It's for a higher good. And I think that helps make our work something we enjoy doing and that we get satisfaction from.
I'm with you on that.
And so that's something that you guys have been putting into action for decades now, with doing the float tanks. I mean, it takes massive amounts of effort and persistence over the years. So, and part of what we talked about too is you've mentioned the phrase "how to do the impossible," and I think that part of that how comes in having the work be actually meaningful to you. Otherwise, it seems like you'd stop at the first challenge, right?
Right, absolutely.
Well, when you build your own structure, it's an interesting thing, is that I remember the first factory, though, when we moved from building the tanks at home, and we rented a factory, and we designed, Glenn's the designer, but we designed process so that we went from down to up we included stretching and bending and reaching as part of the process of making the tanks, because we thought that was good for the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it was our body and our factory.
Yeah.
And we had to pay ourselves, or if we made any money. And so it seemed to us perfectly reasonable to design it so that we were getting what we needed. Mm-hmm. And we tend to do that in the work that we do, is that consider all the things, like you talked about food and, a body and how you take care of it, to include that so that it's working for taking care of what's reasonable and important in the world. So that people would come in, like people who were used to working in a factory, and the first thing they would say is, "Oh, you mean we have to bend?" This assembly line looks so different. Check it out. Try it. See if you like it. I mean, they could change it if they didn't like it. But they generally liked it because instead of starting feeling like a robot, you start feeling like you're in motion when you're working.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's, but it's that, I think when you speak about about consciousness, it's attention to those kind of details of your life. Put them together, put your life together, so that not only do you do it that way, but anybody want to join you is welcome to come and join you too. It's like when we introduce people to the tank. We don't know what they're going to do in there, and we don't care. Mm-hmm. It's their experience, and they want to get to know themselves and what they like to do.
Right. Very good. Glenn, what's next on your list there?
Coffee.
Yes, another item, which is what Lee was just talking about, is getting exercise. So whether it's running or walking, or working in a factory where you can stretch and move your body, or whether it's working in a garden where you can stretch and move your body, one way or another, to get a lot of exercise frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the world is designed so that you would get it if you didn't think somebody else was supposed to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you want me to do that? Sweep that floor? I didn't make the dirt.
Yeah.
You know, we have all those little things about this is what good people get to do and this is what they get to do. You know, with that whole attitude toward the world is not doesn't really serve us. I think.
Yeah, well, one of the ways that we bring exercise into the mix in the Art of NGF world, we do a daily training with, recommend people to do daily exercises with getting to know your body and how it actually is interacting with everything. And the way that you end up doing exercises with the body is, and especially these types, but a lot of them show you what you're doing in all kinds of other situations in your life. So if you're just sitting there and going super fast and not breathing and pushing through everything with an exercise, then you can be reasonably sure. So if a person like that asks me, what can I do in this situation in my life? I don't even have to know much about the situation. I can just tell them to do the opposite of whatever it is they're doing. It's usually they're either trying to force something or they're hesitating too much. So there's either overexertion of tension, of contraction in the body, or there's like static contractions that are just held, you know, and then that means they're withholding or holding back in situations where they could move forward in. So exercise is a portal into like how you're actually doing everything else in life, but we forget that the body is the interface between us and all this stuff and all the people. So it can be easy to mark it off in your mind like, oh, exercise, you have to do something with this body thing, but it's actually like the primary unit you have for all this experience. I mean, so if it's not utilized on a daily basis, then I think parts of it get walled off or armored, and then that means that huge area of life experience is unknown and unexplored. That's a good point to bring up exercise.
The next thing on my list is, I have to preface it by saying that we all, throughout our lives, have traumas that happen to us, whether they're mental, emotional traumas or physical traumas. They end up getting stored in our bodies, and I think we all have to do something to remove these, whether it's, one thing that I've used a lot is deep tissue work. But another possible thing is to go to a psychic healer. But there are many different ways of doing this, but I think one way or another we have to do something that deals with these traumas. Otherwise, when we get old, we will be like these old people who their head isn't much above they're stooped way over and so on. And you want to say something about that?
Yeah, one thing we talk about in the undoing realm is the, or I consider myself like a trash collector or a garbage man, you know, hauling away all the traumas and the crap that people are carrying around with them and storing it up in the bodies. And then, so some of the exercises I mentioned work really well, and then combine that with floating and then getting a massage, say once a week for, a few months at least, and then maybe once a month for maintenance after that, can really help everything. And then you're eating better. I mean, everything will start to function completely differently. All the opportunities in your life that you're completely absent to will suddenly become available and obvious just through the better diet, but with exercise and then with getting the massage, with floating every day. So
I think that now, one of the things that's happening that's so good is interest in sports. And that, in this country, although I know from the soccer teams that play, that many countries in the world are very interested in soccer, and kids learn to play soccer. And I think that sports are being recognized more currently, but I'm not real sure in this area, because in this country it's so mixed with competition, so that I think that sports should be a way of having fun and getting strong and using your body well. And in some countries, the competitive part is added to it very early and way too much. And so, the way that I think it would be very nice is that if the first part, the stretch, the friendship, the counting on each other, the cooperation, if those parts are given priority over the win-win-win. And, these are areas that have to be explored, because, sometimes kids have to go through their win-win-win, and the kids who don't want to go to the win-win-win are happy to have a win-win-winner on their team, or, I don't know if it gets balanced out, although I know that, for example, in this country, now there's examination of what's gone on with football, that people have, the football players suffered too many concussions, and that's very dangerous to their health. And the reason for that has to do with win-win-win, so that it's the kind of thing to bring into consciousness. This is good. Let's keep it up so people are going. But do we want a large number of our kids to have concussions and pay the penalty for that? Or, the other things that come along with that. But I think that the movement towards sports and, or like in Grass Valley, Nevada City, people run, and it's a way of donating money. So you run so that people who need money are contributing, $1 a mile for every mile you run, or $5 a mile. The people in this town think of more ways of supporting each other than any place I've ever heard of.
wow.
Whatever you do, it's being a contribution of some kind of energy to help somebody who needs that energy. And so seeing the example that's right here in Grass Valley, I can understand that everything can be turned into that. Whatever you do, that can happen. It's like this, somebody from the south end of Baja California called, and he wanted to have a center there, and what he was worried about was that the people who live there don't have enough money to pay for floats. Could he afford to have a center when people couldn't afford to pay? And so after our conversation, we came to the idea that, well, is there a population there that can afford it? And he said, well, it's a pretty good size. So what we came up with was, whenever anybody who has money floats, they make a contribution of the amount of a float to somebody who can't afford it. So that it's not only are they floating, but they're making a contribution to their country. So there's always ways of coming to that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to work.
The next thing on my list is to grow something. And my preference is growing food. We try to grow as much of our own food that we eat as we possibly can. And I think it should be not with chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, there's great satisfaction from growing something, and it's especially great being able to then eat it. And even if you can't have a back garden, if you can even just have some pots on a windowsill where you're growing something that you're ingesting, I think it's really good.
Well, there are so many aspects to it. I'm thinking of, there was a classroom that I was teaching in Los Angeles, and we grew on the window wall. There was a bench under the window, and we had castor beans growing. And one morning, the kids came into class, and the beans were over on the other side of the room. And I didn't know that either, that the castor beans jump, or how does that work?
Exploded.
They exploded. They exploded and they jumped across the other side of the room. Well, that mystery kept us going for the entire day. But is that amazing? That plant was there and it threw or it jumped or something happened and the bean moved from being at the top of that plant to the other side of the room. So there are so many things that plants have to offer that, that everybody would like to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really huge part of our existence, and again, one that drops out of awareness pretty easy unless you're engaging it deliberately every day. Yeah.
The next thing on my list is relationship. Having relationships. Would you like to say something about that?
I'm laughing because that's the way the world looks to me. That it's all a bunch of relationships, and I don't know how else to see it besides that. And so that's a, kind of an in-joke here, is that it's as if when we met, Glenn had, what was I talking about? Or what were you thinking?
Well, I see the universe through structure, and you see it through relationship. So, but I think even those of us who see the world through structure, I think have to have some relationships.
Well, what about the relationship to the structure? Even there, I mean, I just don't understand it. It's just my perception. Going back to the idea of who I am, how I discover myself is, everything looks like a relationship to me. Mm-hmm. And which doesn't make Glenn's, everything I look at looks like a structure to me. And that's his way. Mm-hmm. And it's very useful to have both of us along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one day I remember you saying that specific thing about relations, and it was that you and Glenn are very different, but that what you have gotten during these years being with him is access to his way of seeing things. So, and you had in your brain now two ways of seeing things, and you could shift yours to his whenever that was useful, and that to me was like, wow, I mean, that's a fascinating way of seeing things and people, in these situations of difference that sometimes, I struggle, when there's so much difference, but then with this way of seeing it, it's like, wow, I'm actually getting something by working with someone that is so different. And then I can use that way of seeing the world, those lenses, in solving something that probably before that I wouldn't get enough resources. So yeah, when you see a world as it's all tools and resources that are available are a part of you, and you just need to access to those to grow and expand, it looks really fun and friendly in a way, rather than, oh, this is my own and I have to keep it away from everyone and I have to protect it and make sure that no one else get it. That will put you in a very limited kind of fighting situation. So it makes a difference for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's so nice to be able to point that out to kids. Is that, look at what you're gaining. You know, look at what he needs to do. You know how kids know how to do funny things with their fingers? They bend them over backwards and, you know, oh, I can take my hand and get it, run it through my back and do that. And then everybody tries it. Oh, I can't do that. Well, what's your thing? So, yeah.
I have 3 more things on my list, but they're mostly a context of how to approach situations in life. And the first is that all complaints are a projection. In other words, if I'm upset at you, there's something in me that I am having trouble with, that I'm trying to learn about. And that's how come I'm bringing it up.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really useful, yeah.
The next one is that we're either having fun or learning something. And if we're learning something, it's a gift. So any difficulties are always gifts, and it's just our job to figure out what the lesson is, why is this in my life at this time, and how can I learn from this? Because if I don't learn from this, I will be having this situation again in my life in just a little while.
Sequel or a trilogy, right? Many times as you need to see it.
Yes. And the last one is to feel blessed and to feel gratitude, and to constantly find things to feel blessed and gratitude for, and to realize how incredibly fortunate we are. And if we can be going through our life most of the time feeling that, I guarantee you our life will be blessed.
I'm on a big gratitude binge now, where it came to me, maybe at the same time it came to you, is that if I just got an idea that something happened that was bad, I have to find out in here how to appreciate how thankful I am to have had that chance. It does wonders for me.
Yeah, to me it happens when if I perceive something as negative or annoying, usually I see myself in that moment being really robotic and automatic in my appreciation. And that's the only way really to see something in a negative way is only when you are really into this mode of this is A and A plus B equals this, you know? And when you have that linear type of thought that is so deterministic, yeah, obviously the possibilities are not many. But in the moment that actually I open up and I realize, well, there's this way, but there's also this, and there's that one, and the other, and it opens up to multiple possibilities. I cannot see one thing as, oh, this is negative, because I see interconnectedness of all the stuff around, and I can see that that is serving a very important part in a whole universe of things that are happening. Yeah. So that it cannot be wrong, there cannot be mistakes when there's all this system operating for this creation of life. But when I see it, I forget all of these things and the interconnectedness and all that, and I just see, oh no, there's me, this Paula robot, and wanting this specific thing, not getting it, oh, conflict. You see, even when I say it, I can feel it like the robotic type of thing going on there. But when I like allow space, the robotic is just disappears and fades away, and it's this thing of, wow, really seeing everything very different, and having the whole spectrum makes you also appreciate every detail that completes that image.
Well, Walt Whitman has in one of his poems has the line, says a drop of water from a rusted pipe is more beautiful than all the paintings in the Louvre.
Whoa.
And I've thought a lot about that one, and it relates to that finding appreciation in all things. I think only being able to appreciate, say, the paintings at the museum is kind of like only being able to appreciate the little creations that you made that went according to your expectations, and then everything else is just kind of ignored. But then he mentioned, Walt Whitman mentioning that drop of water from the rusted pipe. It's like you couldn't create the rusted pipe on your own. You know what I mean? Ignore the water dropping from it. All those details were reality conspiring to come together to create that scene, and so the appreciation is like, whoa, how did this even get here? You know, just from that single scene, that one little drop from something that the rusted pipe could be seen as an annoyance, you know, otherwise, if you're not in that appreciation realm. So
that's great.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful point, and one of the most important ones that we brought up today. Well, we've burned our way through the list, and I think it's a really good take, a good podcast. So thank you guys for being here, Lee and Glenn and Paula.
Pleasure.
Yeah, this is
And
a
it
good
was
one.
fun besides.
Yeah, also it was fun, and we were doing work. It's all happening at the same time. It's too much. All right, yeah. Totally feel blessed to be here with you guys, and lots of appreciation for this whole thing. And I guess we'll talk to you all again very soon.
Bless everybody out there.
Thank you all.
Thank you, and thank you guys for being here today. Always great.
Thank you for listening to the Art of Not Giving a Fuck podcast. For more info, visit artofnotgivingafuck.com or radicalanddoing.com.